Patrick Findaro, co-founder of Vetted Biz. Excited to have on Andy Fuller, who's the founder and CEO of Mosquito Hunters. His brands crossed the 100-unit mark. Most franchises never cross the 100-unit mark. We're going to talk about the growth of his brand, the humble beginnings, and some insights from their most recent franchisee conference in Tampa. Andy, thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Patrick.
Maybe you could just walk us through how you got into the pest control business and a little bit about the birth of Mosquito Hunters.
So a good place to start, I guess, would be in college. As a means to an end, I started painting houses. I did a house painting business similar to like a college pro type model, just a way I could just cover my tuition money. And I wasn't really sure what my major was going to be at the time. I wasn't really sure of really anything, but I kind of accidentally fell in love with entrepreneurship in the process with running this painting business. I loved the idea of how you could start with nothing and turn it into something, anything. It was just like the ultimate expression of creativity in my mind, where you have nothing but maybe some door hangers or some lawn signs. And, you know, in Michigan, where I'm from, you have to go out on weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, when there's 6 inches of snow on the ground in January and February, and knock on doors and meet strangers and talk about getting their houses painted, which is like the last thing anyone wants to talk about or think about. And then you go through the whole process and you get a few of those folks who want to invite you into their home, and you can offer them a quote. You sit down at the kitchen table. If it goes really well, you can work out a deal. They give you a down payment check, and then you take that check to the local paint store. Sherwin-Williams was the paint store I was working with, and you work out a deal with those vendors there. You figure out how to get your equipment and your paint. And then at that time, this is how old I am, it was, post classified ads and try and find employees. So then I would sit down at the Steak and Shake by my parents' house and try and interview folks, even though I had no idea what I was doing, and then try and build a team, and then put all these pieces together. The weather turns, it's time where you can start painting houses. You paint the house, give the homeowner a nice facelift on their property. So they win. The painters who work for you, they get to make money. That's a good win for them. And then if I do the job right, then there's some money left over for me as the owner, or there's not. And that's part of the adventure, is
owner takes the right
way. So not always money left over for the owner, of course, but that was the game, trying to figure out ways to optimize that. And I did that for a few years. That's how I paid for school. And then it came time to graduate. And at the time, this is how naive I was. I thought, I would go into corporate America, use that degree. And I thought, if I can go to a really large Fortune 500 company where there's all of these extra resources that I could have only dreamed of, running a painting business out of an Oldsmobile, what would it look like if I could work for a multi-billion-dollar company? What could we do?
Yeah, what the impact be? What would the impact be? You'd imagine it'd be like 100x, right?
Right. Yeah, at least, because, there's no reason they couldn't do that. Like, if I could have that sort of mindset, just running it out of an Oldsmobile, why couldn't we do that on a much, much significantly grander scale? And then, of course, no surprise to you or to anyone who's listening who's worked in corporate America, it's just not like that.
And it's hard to find a non-owner going through door to door for 2 months in the winter. Yeah. Like, you can't really hire that. I don't know how much you'd have to pay, but serious cash.
Right. It's, I don't know what it is. I think there has to be something wrong with somebody to be willing to do that. It's like, there's something about that kind of rejection when you get literally the door slammed in your face, where you really find some things out about yourself.
Yeah. You got to check the ego.
Definitely. And also still have a self-esteem and
do it again.
Still be like, I can't take this personal. Like that's the real step forward, when you just start to I would think of myself like Arnold Schwarzenegger in The Terminator. Like, I don't care. Like, the mission is set appointments. I'm going to keep moving to get those appointments. And then at the same time, like, you're trying to build relationships with customers too. So it's kind of a balance. But
so what happened when graduation came? What was that decision? Was it to work at a large multinational, or?
I didn't know what I didn't know. So one was I wanted to move to Chicago, which is where I still live to this day, just because I think I watched the Blues Brothers and Ferris Bueller's Day Off too many times growing up. I just really wanted to move to Chicago, and I wanted to see what it was like. I wanted to experience what it would be like working for a really big company. And I will say I love Chicago. I'm still here today in the Chicago suburbs anyway, because I'm old. But But I'm not in corporate America anymore because I didn't love that so much.
How long
You
was
know,
that
the
stint?
culture. All in, by the time I was actually out, it was probably 9 years.
Okay.
And I'd say those last few years I was moonlighting. So I still had a corporate job and I was juggling that with the early days of Mosquito Hunters. But by the time I was out, officially cold turkey, never an employee again of a company that I didn't own, that was a 9-year stretch.
And moonlighting is definitely an option for entrepreneurs or even franchisees. You just have to be mentally strong and have the support system to do it. But I've met many successful entrepreneurs that have done it for many years. 2, 3, 4 years.
We've got some successful franchisees who do it. I will say it's really hard, and I'd say they're the minority.
Yeah.
For most, it doesn't work for a matter of skill or will. I think it's really important if you're married that your spouse is aligned with you, or if you have a long-term significant other that they're aligned with you, because when you're a business owner, it just changes. It changes your bandwidth and the time. And I was very fortunate that my then girlfriend, now my wife, was really on board with this.
Well, it's also easier if you meet your spouse while you're going through that. Like I met my now wife during a period where I was working a lot of hours. And then I've scaled down from there. But if you just dump it on your wife that, oh yeah, like I was always with you at dinner. Now it's more like 9 p.m., 10 p.m.
Right. That's a harsh change.
Yeah.
So yeah. So she's always been great about it, and recognized early that this was kind of my dream and was really supportive of it. And also, it just helps. She doesn't have expensive taste to this day. I think for your significant other, if they do have significant taste, if they do have significantly expensive taste, it does make it a little more challenging. But there were years where I saw my friends upgrading their houses and upgrading their cars and going on vacations. And, I'd get texts of people's feet sitting by a pool or by a beach somewhere warm while I'm freezing back here in Chicago. And, you got to check your ego at the door, and your spouse has to check their ego as well and just be ready to play the long game.
Yeah. I mean, there's professions that do play that long game. Like here in Miami, I have a lot of doctor friends, and, until 35, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And you start making it when you're in your late 30s, 40s. Investment bankers, it's at 22, 23, you're making over 100K.
Right.
So it's just like a different career trajectory. And entrepreneurs are not like studying as much as medical doctors, but we're both going through a pretty decent grind where, people of the similar mental capacity, aptitude are making a lot more money. But life's a marathon. It's for the long run.
I agree 100%. Over time, I got a clearer sense of what I wanted, in my career and in my life. There are lots of people who are happy working in corporate America, and I say more power to you. And I don't hate on that at all. But it's just not for me. The part that just really, this is like a good example of just what really would sit weird with me, is the idea of, as an adult, having to ask somebody to take a day off. Seems like so dehumanizing. Like, I'm an adult. This is like, to ask to take a day off, that's like the equivalent of like asking the teacher if you can go to the bathroom. Like, I just think that's ridiculous. I think if I want to take a day off, I'll just take a day off, and I'm not going to have
organize
to
your affairs. You just take the day off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's something that's like super practical, but I haven't been an employee for like 9 years. So.
Right. It is practical to keep everybody on the same page, but just the fact that, you have to, I will say, this one company I was at in corporate America, it really was more of like an ordeal. Well, why are you taking the day off?
Oh, wow.
What are you going to be doing? You kind of have to grovel a little bit just to get a day off. And I'm like,
there could be all different stuff going on with your life. And
Right. I'm grateful for those experiences because it gave me that much more of an appetite for the entrepreneurial experience. Like, I always knew that it was within me, especially after going through that experience in college, but I was helped by realizing how much I just hated corporate America. So it made it that much easier. It's like, I know it's going to be a grind. I know it's going to be so hard to build something. But I know I love it. It speaks to me. Like it's calling me. And also I hate being in corporate America. So life does you favors like that. It's those those situations in the middle when you're in like a C plus B minus situation. It's like, well, it's not terrible, but it's not awesome. So what am I going to do? Like those are tougher situations. The best situations in life are like A plus or an F. Like it's either hell yeah, hell no. And that was where I was at that time.
And then how did you decide on the vertical? Because you went painting, corporate America, and then right to mosquito hunters?
Right. It was a lot of late night soul searching, late night Google searching, creating lists. What's something that would make the right sense for me? I didn't have enough money to start something, leave my job and start it outright. I knew I had to moonlight. I knew I had to learn enough to be dangerous within a reasonably short period of time. I didn't really have the flexibility to go back to school, go to trade school. I didn't have the patience to be an apprentice someplace else. I didn't want to have a business where I would have to be at the mercy of my employees. Not to mention, it would have been really hard to start with a large group of employees. I could start with, like 2 employees, and that was it. I didn't want to have to be at their mercy. I wanted to know enough to be dangerous where I could, be a true manager there. I wanted to be in home services because I knew painting and I liked that. However, the part I really didn't like about painting was that you have to reinvent your customer base all the time. So I do a great job painting your house.
How often? Like every 5 years?
Every year. Because so Patrick, let's say like I knock on your door and, we go through that process and you hire me to paint your house. So I paint your house. You don't need to have your house painted again for like
exactly. Like is it every 3-5 years that people are painting their house?
No, I can say like at least where I was in Michigan, and I think it's about the same here in Chicago, is more like every 7 to 10 years.
So they forgot you. You're not top. I'm not going to go back to you.
They could have even moved by then.
Yeah.
It's either, you've changed your mind on the color or we're just going to wait. And so you have to reinvent your customer base all the time, which the good part about the painting business is there's a lot of things that need to be painted out there. But I was much more interested at the time and to this day in the kind of business where you can start a relationship with a customer and build that relationship and make that relationship stronger and stronger over the course of years. I wanted a business where you could continue to service a customer multiple times within a year, but then when they needed you again next year, and then they needed you again the year after that and the year after that, that way
recurring,
you can really have
recurring revenue business models. Like if you just take a step back, unbiased, like they're more valuable when you compare that to an option that's just like a one-off purchase.
Absolutely. And I didn't even sell my college painting business. I just liquidated the assets because there really wasn't anything to sell. And so that was my kind of hard lesson there. It's like, there is no book of business. There's no clientele. I finished the paint jobs that year. I had a bunch of ladders, then I sold the ladders. And that was about it, and a paint sprayer. And, I wanted something where the most valuable asset was the book of business. And to your point, Patrick, like that's what you're dealing with a recurring revenue business. So
what I see, it takes generally more time to get scale and like past break even, but 3 years into the business, like you're not, if you want to keep grinding it to grow the book to $700K, $1 million a year, you can continue grinding it. But some people can kind of stop at the 500K, 600K when it's been 3 years, and they're not going to lose those clients unless they really screw up.
Yeah. And people will move and people pass away and stuff like that. So, you're always going to have some churn with your clients. And there's things outside of your control that would drive a client to no longer be a client anymore.
But hopefully by that
if you're doing everything the way you're supposed to, if you're treating people right, you're going to be seeing customers coming back. That's kind of what you're banking on in a business like this.
And talking to some mosquito hunters, franchisees in the past, a lot, in the beginning, it's a lot of Google ads and different lead generation. But after some time, it's a lot of referrals that are coming in. So happy customers are just referring someone right away that the franchisee is able to start servicing. There's no sales process.
Right. The value proposition is in our name. It's Mosquito Hunters. And if you have been bothered by mosquitoes, then what's not to love? It's a really short sales process. And yes, like customers should be the number one referral source by the time you have your business running. Just if you're doing a good job, your friends are they're going to want to refer you, not just to do you a favor because they like you as the owner. They want to help their friends. So they're trying to help their friends by introducing you, which is nice.
And you still own and manage a corporate location in the Chicago suburbs?
So I still own a location here. I'm not very hands-on with it, but we've got 3 guys here that run it. They started as my technicians back in 2014. Two of them did. Another guy started in 2015. But they've been here and kind of worked their way up ever since. And every year kind of took on more and more responsibilities to the point now where I check in with them for a meeting once a week. We'll get dinner probably 6-7 times a year. We'll do a nice Christmas dinner. But other than that, I mean, they're running the business. And I'm paying them, a good chunk of money to be there and to run the business even during the off season. But now this is a recurring revenue asset that I own. And this is what every franchise owner should be working for. Not exactly that story, but your business should be working for you. So that's what I want. That's what I wanted out of this business. So that's what I built it towards. And that's what this model can provide for somebody who wants to execute the model and put in the work.
What I think more franchise or prospective franchisees should know is it takes patience. Like there's a lot of opportunities that sell semi-absentee, passive franchise opportunity from day one. And then you go through the vetting process talking to franchisees, and that's just not the reality. Or if it's passive from day one, you're not making any money. So
yeah, I'd say, I know you know this, Patrick, but I guess to anybody listening, there's no free lunch in business. Nature will take its course. I know it's very sexy, the idea of just putting in your money and letting your business work like it's a 401k plan, but it just doesn't work that way. I've never seen it work that way.
Yeah. And you can invest in publicly traded franchise brands. Even there's a few publicly traded franchisees, and that's like a truly passive investment.
Right. And so if that's where you're at in life and you want something that is truly passive, I would say don't look at business ownership in that sense. You need to have time and energy and bandwidth that you can invest into the business, because otherwise, it's not going to figure itself out. There's a reason why we work with franchise business owners. We don't have corporate locations. We work with business owners, and we take a royalty from that. If we went the corporate route, like a Starbucks or something, I'm sure there would be more financial upside for us in the big picture. But there's a big trade-off that's there. We would rather work with someone who's a business owner who has skin in the game. But that means because you're the owner, you got to put in the work from day one.
And how did you make that decision? Because I'm sure you could have scaled up and just started growing all around Chicago and had a little Mosquito Hunters empire and be known as that niche player in that space. Why go franchising? Why have franchises all over the US?
The real answer is it's not even really a money thing. It's really I just love to build things, and I love small business owners. And that was something that was really crystallized in the experience of building Mosquito Hunters, which was really kind of my second crack at business ownership after the painting business in college. And to this day, we were talking about this right before we got started. What I love the most about franchising is that I get to work with small business owners every day. It's just something I love to geek out about. It's just endlessly fascinating. I think there's something so purely creative about it, something that's so purely American about it, the ingenuity that's required, the heart and soul that needs to go into running a business. You just don't see it anywhere else than working with a business owner. And that's what's so great about it. So that part was attractive to me. And for lack of a better way of putting it, I just thought it would be really cool to try and be a part of something much bigger than me, and put a dent in, the fabric of America, so to speak. Like, as corny as that may sound, there are companies out there that we've all heard of, 1-800-GOT-JUNK or Baskin Robbins or, McDonald's or whatever. It's some of these companies we've patronized and some we have not, but we've heard of them. We've heard of all of them. And I thought, why not Mosquito Hunters?
Yeah.
We're in this business at the right time. I got into the space at the right time. The market wanted it. There was all sorts of white space. This is something that would work across the country. So why not us? Why not make that my career, at least for the foreseeable future, make that my career and see what happens. So for all those reasons, it made sense for me to go down this path.
So you touched on a few points, but one was like American business culture. And I've spent a lot of time in Europe and South America, and the US is pretty unique where there's few places in the world where if you're successful, people are really happy for you and they want to learn from you. And business owner to business owner, they can be pretty transparent, whether times are good or bad, after you establish some decent level of trust. Where other countries like in Brazil, if you're a successful business owner, people presume you did something wrong and you screwed people over.
Really?
And that's the sentiment in a lot of different countries, where in the American franchise model, franchisees, there's a friendly competition where it's like, oh, you're doing well, but I want to do well too. I'm going to learn from you, and like, let's all grow together and share best practices and kind of raise up to all be better.
I appreciate you saying that. I sometimes I feel like not everybody sees it that way here, but if you say it, relatively speaking, it's worse in a place like Brazil. I mean, I guess that's encouraging. Part of the problem is I feel like every movie or a TV show that's out there, whenever they show a business person, they're always a crook. Like it was Christmas, and my family always watches It's a Wonderful Life. Something about that movie. I love that movie. First of all, I love it. And I love the Jimmy Stewart character and the way that he's just a part of the community. But also I feel like the bad guy in that movie is kind of misunderstood. In some ways, he's a jerk in some other ways, but other ways, like he's just kind of being a shrewd businessman. But also that's what every movie seems to do, is you have to make the business person a jerk. Yeah. And in my experience, like, life isn't really like that. It's actually the most generous people I know are the most successful. And anybody who I've met who's truly successful, who hasn't gamed the system somehow, they've done it just by treating people well. Because here, in America, everyone's got options, starting with your employees and starting with your customers. So like, no one ever forces anyone's employees to work for you. Like, any employee of any Mosquito Hunters company, they've all got choices, and yet they choose to work for a Mosquito Hunters business.
Especially in this labor market, like there's a lot of opportunities. People are fighting for employees. You got to treat them well.
Exactly. And so we're trying, really hard to make this as attractive as an opportunity as possible for employees. Like, speaking on behalf of all of our owners, I know. And then customers. Our customers have options too, not just for Mosquito Hunters, but for any business. So if we're going to keep these customers long term, we have to treat them right too. And we have risk as business owners. We take on that risk. That's the game. And if we have profit as a result, then that's our incentive for taking on the risk. So it's just, to me, it's a very fair deal. It's like the perfect arrangement. I love it. But there's no room for like bad guys, in real life. Like if you're going to treat people poorly, if you're going to treat your customers poorly, if you're going to treat your employees poorly, like, those chickens come home to roost. Like, there are always consequences.
But if you want to build like sustained success, like you can't, it doesn't work.
I agree. And I'll say too, like, in the social media world, I know there's a lot of complaints about social media, and I get it. Sometimes it just feels like too much, but
yeah,
there is some nice transparency and accountability that happens as a result of being in the era that we're in. So if you are going to be,
we produce a ton of YouTube videos, and I get so many critiques, like both negative and positive. But it took a while for me to check the ego, where, I did a video on Kona ice and I called it ice cream, but it's shaved ice. And someone corrected me. And people are correcting me on the numbers. Like 2 years ago, I would get kind of upset about all that. Now it's like, awesome, like, great. All this social media, they're giving me more information. The next video will be better. And I'm just going to be able to get better content out there, because there's all these parties that are connecting on, whether it's YouTube, LinkedIn, or whatever, that are putting me in check to be a better communicator and provide better information.
Right. Oh, I'm glad. That's a good way to take all that, just take it constructively.
Yeah.
I can't think of some specific examples, but don't you feel like in general, 30 years ago, just a random business in town, you were more likely to have someone who's being grumpy or just someone who's a jerk at the counter? And you just don't have that as much because there's just too much accountability and transparency. It's too easy to leave someone a bad Google review.
Well, think about the Uber, cab drivers in Miami were not friendly, going through stop signs. Like, they were talking on the phone with like their loved one in a different country in a different language. And you're just in the backseat dealing with all this. Where now with Uber, they rate you, you get rated, and it's a much better customer experience. That's a
great example, because Uber didn't exist when I moved to Chicago, and I remember that was a wild experience. I can think of a few cab rides in particular, where it's like, if something happened to me, no one will know.
Getting ripped off with the meter, and just like, it's just, wasn't accountability.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah.
And yeah, before, you're operating a mosquito pest control business, there weren't niche players in just doing mosquitoes 30 years ago, at least not that I know
Right.
of. And there wasn't Google ratings, Yelp ratings. Mosquito Hunters, I saw across the board, you guys are rated pretty high. And I'm sure if there's a negative review, someone from corporate or the franchise team is going to dive in and kind of diagnose why was there a negative review? Like, was it something that we could have done better?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we take it seriously. I think every business owner really needs to take their reputation seriously. Always that was true, but especially now. If you are putting money into your marketing and you've got, 4.0 star averages on Google, like you're just flushing that money down the toilet. You need to get your reviews right first, because that's the first thing anybody's going to do. They see a postcard or a lawn sign, they're going to Google you. And if they see that you're a 4-star or a 3-star, God forbid, company, like they're just going to find a competitor. What's a company just like this, but just with better ratings? Why don't I go to them instead?
I listened, Robert Cialdini, who wrote Influence. He was on a podcast and he said the best star rating was like 4.4 to 4.7. 5 stars seems inflated from the consumer perspective. And I think I can relate to that. 4.6, 4.7 for a restaurant. Okay, great. Or some service provider. 5 stars and there's like 50 reviews. It's like, okay, what's going on here?
Interesting. I love that book. That's one of my favorite books. Influence.
Human psychology.
And then he had the other one that came out a couple of years ago, Persuasion. Did you read that one?
I didn't. I should.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, a lot of really interesting facts. And so some of those things, it was the first time they really snapped into focus. I think I read Influence when I was in college, but it was, like the law of reciprocity. That was the first time that was ever really articulated. It's like, oh, yeah, that's like
dumbed down. It's a basic thing, but he put it in writing.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, there's stuff like that works in business all day, every day.
And then your growth as a business owner, like you went from corporate locations, franchisees across the country, and then the next step was, continue growing where you have 100% of this business, but probably not going to grow as fast or have as big as impact, or partner with other investors, other operators, and create something bigger. What was your kind of like decision-making process on kind of becoming part of something bigger in terms of a group of other franchise brands as well?
Right. That we've been a part of Happy Nest since 2018. That was the formation of Happy Nest, because it was originally Lawn Doctor then Mosquito Hunters, and then it was us leveraging a lot of the learnings of Lawn Doctor. At that point, 50-plus-year-old company with multi-generational owners by that point. So they've just seen so much, experienced so much. So we were able to draft off of their experiences and copy off of their homework at many points. And I will say too, I mean, we've received feedback from the team there too. Like, we were able to bring some sort of scrappy entrepreneurial kind of energy. There were maybe some tried and true ways that we were able to reset in some ways. So there's definitely a benefit to having a balance of those things. But let me go back, I guess. It was 2016 when we had our first franchise owner. And around that time, I met another mentor, Ken Walker of Driven Brands. So like Merlin and Meineke, Mako. He introduced me to Scott Frith, CEO of Lawn Doctor. And then Scott, we hit it off like on our first call. It was actually the first time I talked to him was a week before my wedding to my wife, which anyway, it's neither here nor there, but it feels like it was forever ago.
2 big moments in your life though, within a week.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. That's a good point. So Scott and I just hit it off really well. And you can fake so much in life and in business, but you can't really fake the investment of time. And I got Scott's time. Like he would just reach out to me when he's driving into the office, driving home from the office. And, hey, what are you working on now? What troubles are you facing? Let me introduce you to this guy. He might be able to help you with this thing that you're dealing with. Just really, really valuable stuff. And we just got along really well. We just saw the world the same way, saw relationships the same way. And, over time, we became like good friends, not just a mentor-mentee, but good friends, and came to really understand how he sees the world, what he wants to accomplish in his career.
So would you say you had similar core values, both like professional and personal?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is just the way we view relationships and the importance of doing what you say you're going to do and following through and providing value and, give more than you take. And if you have that sort of abundance mindset, then you get exponential value out of all your relationships. And like everything is better. Everything is better in life if that's your attitude. And I know that he's operated that way his whole life. And I feel like I have as well. And we just kind of naturally aligned there. And then for him, so his story is, he grew up in Lawn Doctor. His father Russell was CEO of Lawn Doctor for over 25 years until he retired. And I think it was 2012. And then Scott took over the reins and he was CEO of Lawn Doctor. And I think Scott really had an urge to build something, be entrepreneurial, do something that hadn't been done before. And I don't want to speak for him, but I don't think he was going to be entirely satisfied with just running a Lawn Doctor. I think he wanted to running Lawn Doctor as a franchise organization, as impressive as Lawn Doctor is. I think he had this entrepreneurial itch. And then me on the other side, I had lots of entrepreneurial experience, was very scrappy. I loved the idea of franchising, but really didn't know too much about it and was limited on the resources to do it the right way. Because in doing it myself, I came to learn that there's this very large fraternity of founders kind of like me who had a successful single location in a town somewhere in America. And they thought, why don't we take this brand and turn it into a franchise?
Yeah.
And so you go
There's
through
so many people selling those fraternity members.
What's that?
There's so many people selling those fraternity members a dream and getting compensated to create franchise systems, FDDs, whatever.
Yeah, it's true. It's its own little cottage industry.
Yeah.
And I didn't go that route. I went kind of my own route, kind of finding my own relationships to build the offering.
That's what I always recommend, because you're going to have like a business partner sign an agreement with you for 10 years. So and while you're still figuring it out, like it's better that it's someone that's like close to you, like a friend or a friend of a friend or a member from your church. And like, they're going to be with you in the ups and downs.
Yes.
Where if it's just like a random stranger that found you on a lead generation platform, they're going to be much more, they're going to be quicker to call their lawyer, and a lot of stuff could be resolved way, way before that point if there's like a relationship formed.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't ever want to be just a line item on somebody's spreadsheet. So we met in 2016. 2018 was when we got together and started Happy Nest. In that process, just came to understand what he wanted out of the career and what I wanted out of my career, and thought it would just be a good fit. And then I thought about, at that point, we had 8 locations, and I thought about the value proposition that would be there for a franchise owner. What are the things that we could really offer a franchise owner as part of something much larger than just Mosquito Hunters, as part of this Happy Nest structure? And thought about, first of all, being able to have a centralized marketing program where we would be working with top tier, nationally recognized agencies that specialize in each of their fields. Not the generalists, which is most common in the franchise space. But what if we worked with the best pay-per-click agency and all they did was pay-per-click? What if we worked with the best Facebook agency and all they did was Facebook? What kind of lift would that give for franchisees? It's the sort of thing that we could never do individually, but when we leverage hundreds and hundreds of franchise owners.
How many franchisees were in Lawn Doctor at the time that you guys grouped together?
I want to say it was 500, 600 locations. So definitely
it's like significant learning opportunity to like kind of piggyback on their successes. And I'm sure you kind of like put some steam in the engine to like grow and push them as well.
Absolutely. And another thing that was huge was building our own in-house call center, because up until that point, we were relying on a third party, actually friends of mine who are in the franchising space, who had their own call center, and we were sort of piggybacking on their call center. But it was still a vendor client relationship.
Yeah.
And realize there's real opportunity in owning the call center, where your interests are purely aligned for lots of different reasons. And so that was something that we could do with Happy Nest. And that's something that would offer really disproportionate value to our franchise owners.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of earn your keep with the royalty, where it's like, hey, here's the royalty percentage and here's the marketing percentage, and this is what you get for it. You can do it yourself, but you're going to have to like you're going to have to do all these things, hire someone. And for whatever percent, like, this is what we give to you.
Right. Having a lot more technical expertise in the way of best practices operationally for mosquito control, business intelligence tools, so we can have lots of transparency and scorekeeping, so we can leverage a friendly competition among franchisees and let them track each other's results in real time. Like, these are just the sorts of things that we couldn't do by ourselves.
There's a lot of mosquito companies, but I'd imagine it might serve as a net positive, because now consumers know, like, oh shoot, I shouldn't just be dealing with like mosquito bites. I need to get this taken care of. So whether it's
Definitely.
with Mosquito Hunters or another franchise brand or independent guy, like, at least for me as a consumer, it's like more top of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the opportunity, from the outset, is just try and build out the sandbox. And we're at this place now where it's a huge, huge sandbox.
Yeah.
For lots here in this space. But all of those things and more, they allow us to attract the highest caliber franchisees. That's what franchising is all about, is what is the caliber of your franchisee.
Yeah, I've seen that speaking to two of your franchisees, half hour call, like, they're legit, they're bright, they're hungry. Like, I'm like, I told you, like, these are ideal guys. Like, if I was going to build a franchise system, like, I would try to recruit them to work in my brand.
Absolutely. And that's what's so great about it, is hopefully, anybody who's spoken with Ross or with Josh, they hear that and they talk to them and they're like, yeah, I like these. I like this guy. I like the way these guys think. Like, these guys are A players, and I want to work with A players.
Exactly.
And so we can attract more A players when we have more A players. We attract more A players when we have these really special tools, like the call center and centralized marketing and a technical director, things like that. And that just helps franchisees build more successful businesses that are more sustainable, helps them achieve their goals. Yeah, whatever that may be. We have some owners where their goal is I want to blow this business up as large as I can in 5 years and see what the market looks like. And we have some who are trying to create multi-generational businesses, something that they can pass down to their kids and then their grandkids. But there's room for options. But when you build a business, when you follow the model, when you execute, it gives you options. That's the part that I love so much about this. And I told you about what my structure is here for this local Chicago business. There was a time a couple of years ago where I really thought about selling the local business in entirety and just focus on the franchising piece. But then I realized, like, I've got such a great team here. I love working with this team. Like, we've got such a great thing going. Why would I mess with this?
Yeah.
Like, this business is making me good money and it's requiring very little of my time. And I love working with these guys. And that's what, like, kind of an aha moment where I lifted my head up and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I always wanted. Like, this business is working for me. I'm not working for this business. It doesn't start off that way, but that's what you get towards, over time, if you put in the work.
It's like many businesses, many industries, the business is more valuable to the business owner than it is to someone else. So
that's true.
If it's more valuable to you, then why would you, sell it, and it meets your objectives? And it sounds like, especially your case, like, you're also, learnings from actually operating a location can transcend to, the franchisees, and probably have a different level of empathy of what they're going through.
That's true. Good point.
Any insights from your convention that you just returned back from in Tampa, Florida?
Oh, I mean, I knew what we were going to be covering at this convention. This was our first ever convention. And my expectations were high because I knew what we were going to do. And I got to say, even me, I was blown away with just how great it was. It was a long time coming, because it really wasn't until 2019, the end of 2019, where we had enough locations to even justify having a conference, because if, anyone who's a franchisor listening knows, like, if you wanted to have a conference that people want to attend, you want to have support from sponsors, from your vendors who say, I want to be there so I can mingle with your franchisees.
That makes sense.
But they're only going to want to come there if you have enough franchisees. So anyway, we really weren't at that like scale
8 dudes in a hotel conference room.
Right. Which I've been in those meetings too, and those are cool too. But I mean, if we were going to do it, we wanted to do it a different game. Yeah, we wanted to do it at a different level. And so I remember it was the end of 2019. I'm thinking, all right, I think we're at the right size now. So I think next year, that might be the year. And 2020, alas, was not the year when it made sense for everybody to travel across the country and meet in a room together, thanks to COVID. COVID screwed a lot of things up, turns out, for a few years for all of us. But yeah, 2023 was the first time we got everybody together for our first convention. Actually, I've got the t-shirt
Let's see it
right here.
So for those
Tampa.
that are listening, it says Hunter Palooza and it has a really cool icon of it seems like a guy in safari gear.
Yeah, that's Gunther. That's our mascot.
Very cool.
That's Gunther. He's eating a Cuban sandwich. He's got his palm up because he's working on his 5-year plan. That's something that our owners are focused on in 2023. See that boat there at the bottom? We went on a boat for a boat cruise on one of the nights. It was so awesome. But it certainly wasn't just a party. I mean, it was also lots of panels, roundtables, looking ahead at the opportunities for next year. You know, for us, it's upsells, finding opportunities to make more revenue with the customers that we already have. There's a lot of innovations that have happened in the outdoor pest control space over the last few years, and just really making sure that all the owners are aware of those opportunities and capitalizing, following through on a stringent sales process. Like, what happens when our call center is done with a lead? Is there still an opportunity for the owner to follow up and convert more of that revenue? And the answer is yes. And so we wanted to, isolate how exactly we can do that. But I'd say where I got the most positive feedback was when we were having panels on certain topics where there's not one presenter up there with a PowerPoint, but it's actually, franchisees, 3 or 4 who are leading in one certain area. And then we have a moderator like me or one of our coaches who's there just kind of asking questions and
very cool.
Having questions go out to the group and just seeing what happens. No script.
Yeah.
Have maybe a couple questions chambered, but that's it. And then it's just everyone else is just speaking from experience. It's just really exciting. The energy that was there in that room. Everybody, even all the vendors that I spoke to were like, this is one of the best events. Some said this was the best event I've ever been to, just because of all the ideas and energy that happens in that one place. So I for anybody who is in a franchise and you haven't had a convention yet, if you're a franchisee, push your franchisor to have an annual convention. And if you're a franchisor, it's well worth the effort to put it together.
Yeah, you just foster relationships, and that fosters innovation. And I'm sure the return on the time and capital money to travel there is like super high return for everyone over the coming months and years.
I mean, the knowledge alone, there's a lot that the owners take from that. But also, like, we're all human beings, and we need to recognize that as business owners. Like, we're not Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator. We are human beings, and we need to kind of replenish our emotional fuel sometimes. And that's really what this was for owners who were there. They said, like, I'm so reinvigorated. I've never been so excited about this business as I am right now. So I was thinking we would make this like a biannual thing. And I don't know, we still need to figure out when the next one's going to be, but it was so good that, don't quote me, anybody who's listening, but I really want to try and figure out a way we can do this again in 2024 because it was that good.
That's awesome. I mean, Andy, you've shared a ton today, whether it's prospective franchisees, franchise brand executives, just like that nugget on setting up a positive annual or biannual conference. We'll definitely include links to Mosquito Hunters if anyone's interested in exploring the opportunity. But I just wanted to leave it to you. Do you have any concluding thoughts?
I'd say if you're listening to this and if you're a prospective franchise owner, just make sure you talk with existing owners who are already there in the concept. If you haven't already done so, it's just a real good way to understand, what an organization is really about. Kind of going back to what we started with, culture is everything, and culture is the ultimate quality control. When you can't have everybody all in one room at the same time, if your culture is strong, then a lot of those little details figure themselves out. And if you're joining an organization where the culture is strong, then what I've seen is that will bode well for you as a business owner. And if you don't have a good feeling, if your gut's not telling you something good about the culture, then you should listen to your gut there as well.
Well, I've spoken to 2 of your franchisees. I'm sure I'll speak to more. Maybe I'll jump in and moderate one of your sessions and see that vibe and meet other franchisees.
That would be cool.
Love to meet other franchisees. And Andy, thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Appreciate it. Have a good one.